Hello, welcome to the YouTube channel of Bunker Gold and Silver. Physical gold in the form of bars, coins, and ingots are a very interesting asset with which to diversify your portfolio. Today, we will examine gold versus real estate from a historical perspective dating from the year 1970. And then we will look at gold versus real estate in a more structural manner. Let's get started. Real estate is often seen as a benchmark asset and a safe investment. It brings in income and can be resold if necessary, usually at a profit. But in light of modern economic history, it is the performance of gold that is much more interesting than the performance of real estate. In periods of deflation and weak growth, especially when governments are conducting massive quantitative easing, it is in fact the value of gold that soars, and gold outperforms real estate. Gold outperforms real estate when the economy deflates, when governments create debt. During periods of productive overcapacity, the economy is in fact in a deflationary environment. As a result of the crises in the emerging economies in 1998 and the burst of the dot-com bubble in year 2000, the economy has actually been suffering since 2002. As a result, the financial system began printing massive amounts of money. This would eventually lead to the subprime crisis, which imploded in year 2007. After 2007, the financial system continued to print money in bulk through leverage, credit, and fractional reserves. Governments contributed as well by injecting far more money into their own circulations. For example, in 2014, the 5 largest American banks, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America, held a total of $300 trillion worth of derivatives based on $9 trillion worth of real underlying assets in their vaults. These derivatives were then used to purchase financial products, including real estate, yet they have no real currency counterpart. This is a form of massive money printing. During this period, we can see that the price of gold has risen by 300%, while the price of real estate has risen by only 150% in Paris and 65% in Singapore. Gold underperforms real estate when the economy is better and when there is growth. In times of strong economic growth, gold underperforms real estate. In the years 1993 to 2002, the Internet revolution arrived with its resultant productivity gains, bringing the world out of the post-1987 crisis and subsequent deflationary cycle. Gold then had a gross performance of negative 20%, while real estate in Singapore rose 40% and 15% in Paris. When deflation is such that governments print too much paper money, gold soars exponentially beyond comparison with real estate. When the world faced its first oil shock in 1973 and deflation began to set in the United States in the period of 1971 to 1980 after the end of the Vietnam War, as well as the end of the convertibility of the dollar to gold, gold soared against real estate. The United States introduced the petrodollar, which forced all other countries to adopt the US dollar as their reserve currency. In this manner, the US externalized all its debt and saved its monetary system from the paper dollar. Gold rose 1,600% in the United States. During the same period, real estate in the United States rose by 70%. One factor that is often undervalued by those who invest in stone is the lack of liquidity in the real estate market. This issue is structural, and it is because each apartment is unique. The square meter of one apartment is not worth the same as the square meter of another apartment. In contrast, 1 ounce of gold has exactly the same value regardless of the ingot from which it came. Therefore, gold bars can be sold in one simple click. To liquidate an apartment would take several months, and one must pray that the market would not be too bearish. Gold is fungible. A gold bar in one hemisphere is worth exactly the same as a gold bar in the other hemisphere. They are interchangeable. This is called fungibility. Real estate is not fungible. An expert must be appointed at each time to assess the value of the property. This is why it is impossible to assign a unit price to real estate. It must be done on a case-by-case basis. This makes the market very opaque and impacts liquidity. The bid-ask spread is the difference between the purchase price and the sale price. In any case, everyone pays for this gap. The further the purchase price is from the sale price, the greater the friction and cost of transaction. Gold has a bid-ask spread of about 1%, whereas real estate has a bid-ask spread of 11%. This is crucial for the liquidity of a market. The longer it takes to sell a property, the more opaque a market becomes. In addition, the seller may be put in a difficult position of having to wait months before getting his liquidity. The gold market is immediate. We are talking only a few days before you get your cash. In contrast, the real estate market takes much longer. It will be a good few months before you can sell your property. Gold is not taxed on purchase in France, Singapore, Switzerland, and Germany. In contrast, the fees for real estate are 7 to 10% in France and 2% in the US. For gold, the seller is taxed on his capital gains based on the laws of the country where he is a tax resident at the time of sale. In France, this is the normal capital gains tax. In the US, the capital gains tax is at 28%. In Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and Singapore, this tax is at 0%. Generally, for real estate, there is no tax if the residence is owner-occupied. However, if the residence is used as a financial asset, then the relevant taxes will apply. In the US, the taxes on resale for real estate is between 15 and 24%. The current production cost of gold is about $1,200 per ounce. The current sale price of gold is also $1,200 per ounce, which is almost exactly the same as the production cost. This is the reason why many mining companies are going bankrupt right now, because the price of gold is simply not high enough. According to the Building and Construction Authority of Singapore, real estate construction price is about $1,360 to $1,540 per square meter. One of the characteristics of a deflationary environment is to have selling prices that are almost exactly the same as production costs, leaving producers with zero or even negative profits. The current environment is certainly one of great deflationary pressure. Gold is not a financial asset as it does not generate interest. Gold is currency. It is used to preserve and accumulate the value of currency and to transport it over time. Real estate, on the other hand, is a financial asset because it generates rental income. The value of real estate, like for all financial assets, can be calculated as the sum of its present value of all future cash flows. Currently, considering the average price per square meter in Singapore of about 19,576 Singapore dollars and the rental price of 54 Singapore dollars, the gross yield on this asset is 3.3% per year. Net yields are typically around 1.5% to 2% lower. To assess the quality of financial assets, we look at the price-to-rent ratio, also known as PRR. The lower the PRR, the cheaper the financial asset and the more likely it is to rise in value. For real estate, we think about how many years of rent it would take to buy it back. It is now 30 years for real estate in Singapore, which is exorbitant. Good financial assets have a 6-year PRR. The PRR is generally considered very high beyond 20 to 25 years. Beyond that, it is generally startup ACRs, for which growth other than current income is expected. Currently, factors that may cause real estates to appreciate in value, such as rental prices, growth, low interest rates, and the ability of households to take on debt, are all already at their peak in many countries and can no longer cause real estate values to rise. Leverage is one of the most important concepts to understand in our current financial system because it is the one that generates all the bubbles and financial crises. Currently, all assets are hyper-leveraged. This means that they were purchased with borrowed money that does not exist. When you borrow money from the bank gives you non-existing money and records it in its books. This has been perfectly legal since the financial deregulation of the 1980s. As a result, the 5 largest American banks have a total of 300 trillion derivatives compared to 9 trillion in assets. Real estate is no exception to this rule, except for individuals who are often heavily indebted to buy their own apartments. Companies, banks, and groups benefit from loans to buy real estate, and hence leverage. If the prices of real estate falls, this could trigger a chain reaction, ultimately leading to the real estate value falling by more than a few dozen %. This is a very simple mechanism. Groups that have borrowed large sums of money and use that money to purchase real estate will end up with negative balance sheets if the price of real estate falls. Their financial situation deteriorates and banks are no longer willing to lend to them. They are unable to find sufficient funds to cover their operating costs and therefore they collapse into bankruptcy. They are then forced to sell their real estate holdings, causing the value in the market to plunge even further and resulting in the bankruptcy of other groups. This was the case during the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis in the United States. This crisis has merely been stifled and postponed. Unfortunately, none of the fundamental issues have currently been resolved. This is why it is reasonable to expect that in the next crisis, the real estate market will be strongly impacted. Unlike real estate, physical gold is absolutely not leveraged. No one can take out a loan for a purchase of gold, and no company or financial institution is offering loans for the purchase of gold. Therefore, each and every purchase of gold represents a real sum of money. I hope this video has helped you to shed some light on these two assets. For more information, please visit our website at bunker-group.com. Please also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching and see you in our next video.